Hello, my name is Anna McKinstry, and our group did a report on the hydric physiology and ecology of a federally endangered desert lizard. So, for some background information, animals such as desert animals, like the one of this study, live in harsh climates with conditions that relate to food availability, drought, precipitation, temperature, stuff like that. So, these animals need to avoid these conditions either by changing their behavior or changing physically. Desert animals can adapt to these conditions in a few different ways. For example, they can be active only during specific times of the day or specific times of the year, like when there's more precipitation or lower temperatures, or they can choose cool and shady areas as habitats. However, this is only possible if there are different environments available to these animals. The species of interest in this experiment was the Gambella scylla, which is more commonly known as the blunt-nosed leopard lizard. It's an endangered lizard species commonly found in California, and it's active between the months of April and July. It uses plants, shrubs, leaves, and animal burrows as shade and protection from the heat, but it was found that they do not reproduce during drought years, which brings into question the hydration abilities of these lizards. If you look at the map on the left, you can see how drought has become more prevalent, especially in America, due to climate change. Be seen in the number of wildfires in California happening right now. It can be seen in the high wildfire risk in North Carolina, which is very not common. This is a result of increasing dryness as a result of climate change. And so because of this, there's an ever increasing need for animals to have a water balance strategy in order to survive. Without it, they won't survive, and likely the species will become extinct. And so it's important to understand how these animals respond to heat in order to assess risks that they face. These scientists explored how animals regulate body temperature. There's a lack of research on how animals maintain water levels, and so these scientists sought that out. They measured how well these lizards retained water by looking at water loss through their skin, blood concentration levels, and the overall body condition. They measured body temperature and different habitat use to see if dehydration affected how they regulate temperature. It was expected that lizards will lose water slowly and have more concentrated blood compared to animals in wet habitats, and that the water balance is going to differ depending on the environment. And so dehydrated lizards would have lower body temperatures and spend time above ground, and then as it got warmer and drier outside, they'd spend more time underground in order to conserve water.
Okay, so this study took place in the Carrizo Plain National Monument in California. 79 G lizards in total were captured with handheld lassos, and it was stated that these lassos did not hurt them. Each lizard had a passive integrated transponder implanted into them. And basically, what this is just an identifier for the lizards. So, if or when they're recaptured, the researchers can tell exactly like which lizard they're dealing with. A select number of the lizards also had a very high frequency or VHF collars secured to them. And basically, what these collars do is just monitor the lizard's behavior. So, for example, they can tell if it's in a burrow or above ground, and if it is above ground, how much sun is on their skin. Obviously, this is an estimate or an approximation, but it's pretty accurate from what it seems like. Also, captures and recaptures occurred between April and July of 2021. So this table was in the paper, and basically it just describes how many lizards were captured and recaptured and when this occurred. So they started the captures between April 23rd and the 25th. So 67 lizards were newly captured. 39 of these were fitted with a VHF collar, and no lizards were recaptured since this was the start of the study. The next measurement period was between May 7th and the 8th. 11 lizards were newly captured, and two of these were fitted with a VHF collar. 26 lizards were also recaptured during this measurement period, and 21 of these were fitted with a VHF collar. And on July 14th, which is the last day of the captures, one lizard was newly captured, and it was not fitted with a collar, and 14 lizards were recaptured, and all of them were fitted with a VHF collar. So you'll see that the total does not match the total lizards, or total lizards captured in a sense. Basically, what this is describing is like the capture and recapture events total. So 79 lizards participated or were captured for the study, but 40 of them were recaptured. Basically, it's just 79 plus 40. So the data that was collected at each capture or recapture was how much the lizard weighed, the sex, so female or male, the snout vent length, which was measured in millimeters. And basically, what this is, I included a picture, but it's from the snout to kind of like the beginning of its tail. CEWL values, which is talked about in the next slide, body temperature in Celsius, and blood samples. During April and May, researchers measured how many total pregnancies each female lizard had gone through, and also their approximate stage of egg development. And how they measure the approximate stage of egg development is just by palpating them or just touching them around their abdomen area. So they also collected behavior of the lizards, or the data. They collected the behavior of the lizards through the collars they had on. So this was not measured during the capture or recaptures, but like between or before they were recaptured in a sense. So this includes how long the lizards stayed in burrows versus above ground and how, like when they were above ground, how much sun was on their skin.
Cuteness evaporative water loss is all water loss through the evaporation through the skin. The G. Silus species has 50% less cuteness evaporative water loss than the S. occidentalis species. Females do not change the amount of evaporative water loss during the active season. Males, on the other hand, have a lower amount of cuteness evaporative water loss in May compared to April or July. Plasma osmolality, the amount of solutes, which are salts and electrolytes in the blood. The G. Silus species has more plasma osmolality than the S. occidentalis species. Males have a lower plasma osmolality in July than in May. Females have no change in plasma osmolality during the active season, which is similar to their results in cuteness evaporative water loss. Body condition, the general fat or the amount of fitness in an animal. Females have a higher body condition in May than in April or July on average. Males, on the other hand, have the same body condition from April to May, then decrease in July.
Based on the results that were gathered from this experiment, researchers are still unable to find a clear-cut conclusion on the G. Sila lizard. Despite conditions in the lizard's home becoming hotter and drier, their hydration levels and behavior are unchanged. This could suggest two different things. The G. Sila lizard is either able to tolerate dehydration well, suggesting it is in fact adapted to its environment, or that they're at an extreme point of dehydration and these lizards are on the brink of extinction. Researchers found that G. Sila lizards lose very little water through their skin and become more watertight when they're dehydrated. This suggests that lizards are in fact adapted to their environment. However, the ability of these lizards to survive long-term is still uncertain, as drought conditions in this area will only grow more severe with climate change in the future. Due to the contradicting points that were found, we agree with the researchers in this article that more research is needed to have a clear conclusion on these observations. We also agree that another experiment must be conducted with the G. Sila under wetter conditions to understand how they behave with more water available, as well as how much water they can store and use. These results can be compared with G. Sila under dry conditions, and thus we will be able to find a conclusion on whether the G. Sila is adapted to its environment or if these lizards are on the brink of extinction with severe dehydration.
Findings of this research suggest that the lizards were either severely dehydrated or incredibly well adapted to desert life. The lizards lost very little water, and it was found that the dehydrated lizards actually had better retaining moisture. This suggests that there's a possible water-saving adaptation in the lizard. Despite changing environmental conditions around the lizards, water loss and blood concentration levels appeared to be stable throughout the experiment, and there was an unexpected lack of connection between hydration levels and regulation of temperature or choice of habitat. Additionally, the lizards were found to be capable of tolerating dehydration very well and carrying on with daily activities like normal. But it's a possibility, however, that all of the lizards in the experiment were equally dehydrated, which brings into question different changes that could be made in future studies. And it was overall found that a single drought year is not going to wipe out the population. However, it's important to study how they tolerate drought to understand the risk of extinction of these species. Could look at fully hydrated lizards to compare water loss and blood concentration to the lizards of this study. Tests could also be conducted on the dehydration tolerance of these lizards to understand how it affects their behavior. And also there could be a change in how the water was provided to the lizards in the experiment because they use standing water, which isn't really accurate to how water is provided to animals in real life.